Here's what I've been telling people. I've been telling people that you might get a rent freeze. You had 3 rent freezes under Bill de Blasio, one in 2015,
Right.
one in 2016, and I think one in 2019. And so you got 3 of them under him. So and the city didn't fall apart. The city's still a city, and rents are still sky high. People still can't afford to live there. So yeah, he might do a rent freeze, but again, that's nothing new to the city. Special guest with us, Russell Dobular from Dissidence is with us. Hey, Russ, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jimmy?
Good. So now I wanted to have, Russ actually lives in New York City. So I wanted to get someone's opinion on the New York City mayor race from someone who lives in New York City. And so I went on Facebook today and I saw this. Now, I normally don't go on Facebook. You know me, I don't go on Facebook.
Yeah.
But Lucky Trends put this up, says they'll insist this is a one-off victory, something that can only happen in New York and nowhere else. They're wrong. New York is the world's financial capital, home of Wall Street and billionaires from across the globe. If everyday people can defeat oligarchs here, we can defeat oligarchs anywhere. Okay, spoiler alert, you didn't defeat the oligarchs. But he's being bankrolled by the oligarchs. Just so you know.
Alex Soros isn't a man of the soil.
So that's, if you don't know who that is, that's George Soros, the billionaire George Soros' son, heir to the Soros fortune, Alex Soros. And so every Democrat has to bend the knee to the Soros. Just like Donald Trump had to bend the knee to Sheldon Adelson and Miriam Adelson, they have to bend the knee to George and Alex Soros, and that's what this is. So you don't have to batten down the hatches because a socialist is taking over. Okay, you don't have to worry about your kids taking a nap that allows them to switch genders back and forth. That's not happening. Okay, you're not going to see Sharia judges on daytime TV. That's not happening. Okay, so. He's not putting Judge Judy back in the kitchen, is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
No.
So this is what's aptly. So he's a globalist. That's what Alex Soros is. And so let me just show you this. Someone asked Grok, "Hey, can you explain the irony in this photo? Right? So here's the irony." The irony, my dear fellow, manifests in the splendid tableau of a billionaire's heir ensconced in penthouse grandeur, embracing a democratic socialist whose platform vociferously demands the expropriation of such fortunes. Even Grok knows how stupid this is and how stupid you have to be to fall for this again. We fell for this with Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a tool of Wall Street, which is why he didn't break up the banks, which is what the left wing and the right wing were calling for. Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party. In fact, he made sure the bankers got their bonuses while he kicked 5.1 million families out of their houses. Okay? Then, what did he do? Then he gave us a giveaway healthcare plan. He didn't give us a left-wing healthcare plan. He didn't give us a public option or Medicare for all. He gave us a giveaway to big pharma and big insurance, which is why your healthcare premiums are skyrocketing. Which is why people still go bankrupt when they get sick. Which is why people's healthcare premiums are more than their mortgage payments. And he also took us from 2 wars to 7. So this idea that Barack Obama was a lefty, he's not. But he plays the role of a lefty, and Republicans pretend he's lefty so they can pretend to be different so they can get people to vote for them. It's this pretend 2-party system. The same thing's happening with this guy. Believe me. I'll just give you a couple of these and then I'll bring Russ in. So our friend Nick Cruz, this is Nick Cruz, says, I warned you guys about the Working Families Party and George Soros. The New York left is completely cooked. Friend of the show, Viva Fry, says, a billionaire supporting a socialist? Congrats, New York. You F yourself hard this time. Syrian Girl says, not a good sign. Walt says, I mean, if this doesn't scream grassroots campaign, I don't know what does. On the backs of the poor, indeed. Salty Cracker says, the billionaire hugging the dude who promised to get rid of billionaires. Exactly. And here's a friend of the show, Fiorella Isabella, She gives a great breakdown of it. She says the Mamdani psyop hinges on convincing the gullible right that he's a radical communist jihadist who will impose Sharia law, and the shit liberals and to convince the shit libs that he's a social democrat who will bring feel-good changes for yuppies and underpaid millennials in New York City. The truth is he's neither, but simply there to keep the two sides fighting over a character that doesn't exist. He's not going to better the lives of New Yorkers. He's not going to take on Zionism. He's talking about anti-Semitism, for F's sake. He's certainly no communist, nor is he even remotely a threat to the establishment. His election is a sign of zero significance to the Palestinians or U.S. imperialism, to which he will simply add a better flavor for I don't know what that is, Usians?
Yeah, U.S. Asians.
U.S. Asians, okay.
Is what that
But let's be real. That's all 80% of Americans care about anyway. They don't really give an F about the world beyond their slogans. And here's what Glenn Greenwald says.
The discourse that has emerged around Zohran is just completely mad. And I say that as somebody who expects very little from him now, who's not particularly excited by his candidacy. I don't even know if I would get off the couch to go vote in this election. But I just think he's going to be a standard Democrat who's there to trap young people and deceive young people into believing that the Democratic Party still has something to offer them, that it's not the party of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, but cool leftists like AOC and Bernie and so on. I think that's going to be their mission, their function.
So let me ask Russ. Russ, what is your take on it as a New Yorker? Now, Glenn's given us that take from Brazil, I guess, but, he knows everything about the U.S. What do you say?
I think you got a lot of different things going on here. I think first you have to start with this question. Does Mamdani actually want to institute policies like this, or is he just lying? Is it just a complete facade? I don't think that is the case. I also believe that he is presenting himself, as politicians will tend to do, of all political stripes, like he can do more than he can, and he's going to accomplish more than he will. In terms of, I actually had this conversation with Shama Sawant. She was in New York, and we kind of had a dinner interview thing. And I said to her, you absolutely, do not mess with the Democratic Party. You don't get involved in anything like that. And, she was able to win a city council seat. There's absolutely no way an independent is winning the mayoralty of New York City. Not at this time. Maybe at some point in the future. There's absolutely no way. I think for people who have no chance of winning, it's easy to take a principled stand. What if you're gonna win? That was what I asked her. Like, what if you had a chance of winning? What do you do? Like, do you tell Jamie Dimon to go fuck himself? Like, do you do that, knowing what these people can do in response, or do you try to neutralize the opposition? Now, in terms of the things that he's promising, some of them are completely feasible, like freezing the rent. That is absolutely within the power of the mayor, because we have a very unique system in New York of rent stabilization, where you have a board that votes on how much you can increase the rent on rent stabilized apartments each year. 25% of New Yorkers live in rent stabilized apartments. De Blasio did it twice. And certainly he was no great political talent.
3 times.
Did he do it 3 times?
That's what that's what I read today on Grok.
Okay. Oh, okay. So there you go. If De Blasio, because the mayor appoints the members of the rent board, like over half of the members of the rent board. So what's all of the conflict about? What's all the Sturm and Drang about? My interpretation, I don't think that these people who are having a complete meltdown about Mamdani are putting on an act. But as you point out, the things that he's going to do are far from being these incredibly radical things. If you get a few government-run grocery stores, is that really going to bring down the consumer porn version of New York that it took 30 years to build? So what's bothering them so much? Well, when you've got an oligarchic class that is used to having its own way in every detail, I don't think they wanted Mamdani. And I think that's enough. I think they know that they've been robbing the public blind for decades, and they fear even the slightest intimation of a conversation that actually shines a spotlight on them. Curtis Sliwa, hard not to like that guy, even though his politics are not mine. He pointed out, as did many other people, why was Elon Musk coming out at the 11th hour against Mamdani? Well, Cuomo gave him $1 billion boondoggle in New York State, most of which the state ended up having to write down that didn't fulfill its promises, which is pretty typical of Elon, frankly, and where they didn't produce the jobs they said they were going to produce. And one of the first things they did was fire everybody who tried to unionize. So, yes, while we might look at it coming at it from the left, like this guy's already sold us out before he's even in office, and that's valid. At the same time, if you want to understand why these people are so upset about it, it's because they have that level of aristocratic arrogance. They don't believe that they don't fundamentally believe in democracy. And that's not just oligarchs, that's the Democrats. Look at all these Democrats that did not want to endorse him. It's vote blue no matter who, as long as it's somebody they approve of. These people hate democracy. They will use democracy very much like they did in the imperial Roman Empire. They kept calling it a republic for centuries after it was clearly an empire with no republican element to it, because it was good branding. People like to think of themselves as a republic. That's what you get now. They talk about democracy. But where you see even the smallest rebellion, which I do think this represents, very small, and far less than a lot of people might think it's going to be. That's too much for them. That's why Bill Ackman went fucking berserk. Do any of these people actually believe that Mamdani is going to burn down the city? Well, go by Bill Ackman's own tweet. I'm here to talk. Anytime that you, as soon as the drama was over, all of a sudden the hysteria went away. So something else worth pointing out here too is all of the mayors of the latter half of the 20th century into the 21st century were either products of the old Ellis Island immigration wave, Italian, Irish, Jews, or the one exception was David Dinkins, who is a product of the Southern migration and the large black community that has always been in New York. Mamdani is something that was inevitable, a passing of the torch to the new immigrants. Somebody from Flushing, from Queens, when I grew up, we were all grandchildren of Ellis Island. My whole neighborhood was Jewish, Irish, and Italian. And it was very much that melting pot where a New York culture that fused all those things together developed. Today, Awkwafina, she had a show called Nora from Queens. And I looked at that, and being from Queens, I was like, all right, so back in the day, it would have been Teresa from Queens. Or if you had Nora from Queens, she would have been Italian, or she would have been Irish. That would not have been about Asian people. The city has changed. Cuomo, Koch, de Blasio, they are all heirs to this older New York City that is rapidly evaporating. Eventually, these new rising immigrant groups were going to flex their muscle electorally because they constitute a majority. This is an old demographic in New York that has clung to power because they've been very entrenched in that power. And I think that's part of the hysteria about him being a Muslim. It's partly that older immigrant group not wanting to pass that torch.
So 33% of Jews voted for Mamdani. 50% of Jewish people under 50. So that whole smear campaign of trying to say he's a Muslim terrorist, it didn't seem to work. So what do you expect out of I like to call him Zohran Mamdani, but what do you expect out of him? So here's what I've been telling people. I've been telling people that you might get a rent freeze. You had 3 rent freezes under Bill de Blasio, one in 2015,
Right.
one in 2016, and I think one in 2019. And so you got 3 of them under him. So and the city didn't fall apart. The city's still a city, and rents are still sky high. People still can't afford to live there. So yeah, he might do a rent freeze, but again, that's nothing new to the city. A mainstream Democrat, Bill de Blasio, did the same thing. The same guy offering you a bag of French fries to go get a big pharma product, a vaccine shot in your arm, an experimental medical treatment. That's the kind of guy who was also doing rent freezes. So you get a rent freeze. You might get a store in Harlem that's run by the city. Anything? Do you really expect anything else from him? He's already knuckled under for the police union, right?
He has with Tish. Although we'll see how that plays out, because again, you're trying in the most Zionist city outside of Israel to win on a platform where you're saying you'll have Netanyahu arrested if he shows up in New York, and refuse to back down on the idea that Israel has a right to exist as a state with equal rights, which everybody knows what that means. No, not as a Jewish state.
Yeah.
Now, in reality, does he keep Tish? Keaton threw out, in theory.
Tish is the police chief.
Yes. To explain. All right. So if you go to NYU Drama School, it's the Tisch School of the Arts. There was a kind of aristocratic group of old money Jews around the turn of the century. She comes from those. The Oakses, the Guggenheims, the Salzburgers, the Tisches were one of those families that were like these leading Jewish families at the turn of the 20th century. So she is the police commissioner. She's an ADL maniac, absolutely despicable in her attitudes about student protesters and their right to protest, just as bad as you can imagine. And when he was asked if he would keep her, he said yes. Now, does he figure that she's going to quit? Does he figure he's going to give her an order to let people protest that she's going to bitch about, and he'll give him a pretext? Who knows?
So what do you overall expect out of Mamdani?
I think the rent freeze will probably happen. Okay. I think the city-run grocery stores are a harder lift. I think raising taxes on millionaires has to go through the state. He doesn't have the power to do that. And Hochul has emphatically said that she will not do that. But I think part of what you're seeing here is the end of a cycle. But as I think you're getting at, and I think you're right, the Democratic Party as it exists is in no position to usher in what comes next. The New Deal lasted really from the 30s, the New Deal defining politics really from the 30s into the Reagan era, into the 80s. That's why you go back now, you look at Nixon, you look at his policies, he's to the left of most of the Democratic Party today.
That's right.
But now you look at Democrats today, and perhaps one day people will look back and say, wow, I can't believe they were that right wing, because we have really lived since the 80s in this Reaganomics era. And no place has that been more true than in New York City. The election of Mamdani, in terms of whatever he ends up doing, whether he's a disappointment, which I think you're probably right, I think he will be for anyone who thinks he's really going to be this radical bomb thrower. He's probably going to be more like a squad member, rhetorically fiery, politically cowardly. I think that's probably what you're looking at. But what does it represent in terms of the fact that he was able to overcome, and I will grant you, Cuomo was a particularly odious pig. I still believe if he had run against a generic Democrat, he probably wouldn't have won the primary, much less to have won the mayoralty. So he had a kind of perfect setup. At the same time, even with that setup, you're a 34-year-old assemblyman Muslim that nobody's ever heard of taking on this old Tammany Hall-inflected political dynasty. He does have, obviously, a lot of political talent, but this is coming to the end of a cycle. These guys, this is what always amazes me when they talk about how we can't change direction. Setting aside the reality of Mamdani, just the theory of what they were talking about. We can't turn towards socialism. We can't turn towards communism. What the fuck have you delivered for people?
Nothing.
What have you given people? Of course they're not listening to you anymore. You've been screaming about socialism since the fucking Cold War, and now we live in a country where we have a lot of the things that you said communism was going to bring, right down to the bread lines. You got the bread lines, you've got the consolidation of power. It's just not consolidation of power under the state. It's consolidation of power under private corporations working hand in hand
with the state. Which is fascism.
So it's fascism. So what is it you're arguing people should stick with? New York, the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country on earth, 1 in 7 school children are homeless. And these guys talk like they just hit a home run. Like, why would you get rid of us? What, you haven't had your turn at bat? Essentially, politicians in that vein, in that Cuomo vein, in that Bloomberg vein, have been in charge of New York City since 1992. Even de Blasio, as you point out, he was not really a deviation from that overall drift. You know, probably you want to look at what Mamdani will probably do. He'll probably be similar to Bloomberg in that respect. He'll be a little better than what you had, but not nearly what people thought they were going to get.
You ever notice how just standing up after sitting too long feels like a full contact sport these days? Knees crack, back, props, and suddenly you're wondering when walking to the fridge became cardio. It's not your fault. Modern life's made us too sedentary and our bones and joints pay the price. And that's why I came across the Juvent Micro Impact platform. It got my attention. This thing uses safe micro movements, not those high impact machines that can actually mess you up, to gently activate your body's natural systems that support mobility, comfort, and long-term vitality. Turns out people using this thing say they're feeling less pain, too. It can help you improve circulation, support bone and joint health, relieve constipation, and even boost your energy and lymphatic flow. If you haven't already, go back and listen to my episode with Juvent's president to hear the science behind it. It only takes 20 minutes a day, and it's built for people who want to stay active, strong, and independent without risking injury. So here's the deal. Head over to juvent.com/Dore. That's JUVENT.com/DORE and use the code DORE for $300 off. There's a 6-week buyback guarantee and a 10-year limited warranty. So you've got nothing to lose except your pain and stiffness. Try it today. Your future self will thank you. Come see us in Australia. Second show's added in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. We'll see you in Burbank, California, the day after Thanksgiving. It's a Friday. And then Pottstown, Pennsylvania, December 6th. Plus, January 11th, we're going to be in Waikiki at the Blue Note. Tickets not available yet for them, but go to jimmydore.com for a link for all the other tickets.